Webinar on on Portus for Made2Manage and Intuitive. Excuse me. Just a little bit before we did one of these webinars about in October, and in October we had I think 3 different people that decided they wanted to do a trial. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, that's correct. 3
Uh,
people.
and it looks like 2 of them are actually going to purchase the product and I really love it. I just about an hour ago talked to John Justice over at VFP LLC and BFP Inc. I think is the name of the company. And he had some great things to say about Portus. Can I have everybody that's not talking besides Bill and myself mute their line so we can get the background noise out? Okay.
Brian, I'm here.
Okay, good. Hi there. That's Jim
Yep.
Castellano. Anyway, John Justice said that I asked him what are the things that he liked about it and why they were going to go purchase it here in the next couple weeks. And he said is the ease in which it lays out the information and how visually appealing it is. And he said that he had tried Made2Manage and had tried advanced reporting through Made2Manage and the people that were trying to get things done he wanted to do. And he said Bill Muradkin, who's going to be the one doing the demo today, is the only one who nailed it and got exactly what he wanted to see. So if you put all this information in Made2Manage or into Intuitive and you can't get it out in a manner that tells you something, it's almost useless. So that's what Portus does. It takes all that information you put into your ERP system and makes it visually and useful and visually appealing. Without going too much farther on the introductions, I'm going to introduce you to Bill Muradkin, and I'll let him take over from here. You should see his screen. It says PeopleSense Analytics powered by Portus in the middle of it. And if you don't, let us know. Turn your audio back on and say, hey, I don't see that. But if you do, or if you have any questions as we go along, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the questions. I'm sure that Bill won't mind if you interrupt him. Okay, Bill, go ahead.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, Brian. So with that introduction, I just want to say the goals of our session today is to give you a top-level view of Portus, or with our collaboration with PeopleSense, what we call PeopleSense Analytics. And then in the process, if you get interested in what you're seeing here, then we would be happy to do a much more personalized deep dive demo, perhaps to even more people in your organization, where we can even spend more quality time. And then in later slides, if that goes well and now you really want to kick the tires on Portus, we have a very good trial program that is risk-free. We'll talk about that. So the goal is for everyone just to be able to say, okay, I know what Portus is, and then make an informed decision about whether they want to find out more. So I'm going to spend 3 or 4 PowerPoint slides just to set the background, but we're going to spend most of the time doing a live demo. So first, about Portus. We've been around for 7.5 years, and probably the most important thing to know about us is that we're not software people, we're manufacturing people, so we feel like we've walked in your shoes. And we've had issues running factories in terms of getting the information that we needed in an efficient way so that we can make our processes better, improve profitability, and so forth. So we took that passion and built a software product to do that. Today, Portus is installed at key OEM and contract manufacturing companies in North America, and we are interoperable with several ERP platforms. Of course, the topic today is Made2Manage and Intuitive, but we also have customers that use the Oracle EBS, which is the main Oracle, not all the companies Oracle has bought, but the main Oracle ERP platform, and a smaller, lesser known ERP system called Expandable. So what are we trying to do? And this is probably the most important point I want people to understand. We are going for game changing. So if I go through this demo, or if you kick the tires on Portus and the reaction is kind of ho-hum, well, we kind of have this, or we already do this, then it's definitely not a good fit. Where Portus works is where people really feel like this is going to make a big difference in their business. So we're shooting high, and if we hit it, we think that we get very satisfied customers. Another key word is solutions. One of the biggest issues I had in my manufacturing background with reporting solutions is that they were not solutions, they were tools. You were given something that then you needed to go learn and link to your data, and then somebody had to know how to maintain the report, somebody needed to figure out how to get them to people. And our vision with Portus was always that it's immediately consumable and available. So you'll see that when we go through the demo. So what is it? Well, there's a mouthful there because it does a lot of things, but we basically mine data from your business system so we can give you business process flow automation. And that is in big bold letters because that is probably the main reason that is driving the relationship we have with PeopleSense. PeopleSense help companies, especially if they use Made2Manage and Intuitive, improve their business process flows by using their systems better. And Portus kind of fills the void in part of that process. And what we do is we transform the data in your Made2Manage or Intuitive system into what we call actionable business intelligence, and we do that in the most efficient delivery mechanism possible, which is the web. So Portus is a browser-based application. You can deploy it very easily anywhere in your company as long as you have a device that has a browser. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these business process flows and these workbenches that Portus builds around them. So you can think of your interaction with your ERP data as driving various business processes like cost reduction analysis or reviewing job shortages or doing supplier business reviews. And what we do is we build fully ready to consume workbenches to automate that process. I mentioned these specifically because I will spend some time actually demonstrating how Portus does these, but there is a lot of business processes that we automate. So what does it look like? Well, we take information from your ERP system, Made2Manage or Intuitive, but we're not just limited to that information. We can take information from other systems you have inside your network. Maybe you have a manufacturing execution system, a CRM, and then we can also take information from outside your four walls, from suppliers, and all in real time presented to you in charts, tables with continuous drill down into more levels of detail. As the years have gone by, we've also created little apps when customers have come to us and said, you know, I track some information in an Excel spreadsheet or in an Access database because it's not really covered by my business systems. But boy, that would be nice if that was also in an organized database and I could see that information side by side with my ERP data or other data. So we built little apps to do that. And in the case of two of our customers, they've been with us for many, many years. Once they got used to the views, they said, hey, you know what? A lot of times customers call us and we use Portus to answer the question that they have. But boy, could we increase our customer satisfaction if we could give them a customer portal. So they could go to our homepage, click on a link, log in, and do some of their own self-service querying of things that I'm comfortable sharing with them in that basis. So this is an overview of, at a very high level, of what you can do with Portus. Last slide before we go into the demo. When it all comes together, it should feel like this to you. Hey, I bought this appliance, if you will, and in the process, I got an architect that was very good at manufacturing type dynamics and designed very easy to consume reports and analytics. I got somebody that really knew my ERP's database, so they knew how to put it together. I got somebody that figured out how to get that stuff into web pages with skills in HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all of that. And I feel like I'm getting a lot of my analytical processes automated so that the people I have employed doing this stuff aren't spending 80% of their time downloading stuff into Excel and putting the analysis together. They're just from time zero consuming the analysis and doing the analysis work, not the compilation work. And when it all comes together, you get organizational efficiency, scalability, and because we can really interface with all kinds of different data, once Portus is inside, you can add other arms and legs to it in terms of other data that you want to analyze. So those are the pictures at a high level. I'm about to go into the demo where you'll be able to kind of crystallize what I've said here. Before I do that, I want to make sure there isn't any overhanging questions. And then if there are, we'll address those and then we'll go into the demo. Okay, so I didn't hear anything, Brian, so I'm going to go on. You okay with that? Brian's on mute, I think. All right, I am going to actually then go into the demo of Portus. Just want to make sure. It's so quiet doing these that sometimes you wonder if there's anybody out there. I'm going to assume all of you can hear me.
I'm out here.
Okay, good. I'm assuming all of you can hear me and you can see that I've now gone into a browser. This is my favorite one, Google Chrome, but Portus will work with Internet Explorer, Apple Safari, Firefox. What happens is that we actually install this inside your network. So some people say, what are you saying? Is all this stuff gonna be available on the World Wide Web for people to see what's going on inside my business? Absolutely not. We use the browser as a delivery platform because it's efficient, but we install Portus in your network. So the only way that you can actually get to this screen is if you're inside the network because you're on the premises, or if you have VPN services because you VPN from your home or from some kind of a remote location. Once we set it up, there's going to be some kind of address that terminates to this page. Your administrator will give you this address. You only need to remember it once because we know in browsers we can just bookmark it and get to this page. Once you get to this page, you will input a Portus user ID and password, and that'll get you into the system. The way the system is organized is there's a series of tabs across the top, and when I click on any of these tabs, some reporting options open up on the side. Sometimes when I click on a reporting option, I'll be asked some questions down here in what we call the choices area, or sometimes when I click on something, it's just going to run and it's going to come back with the analysis. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this in this demo, but Portus just ran real-time 6 different queries against the SQL database for this dummy company that we have. This is a Made2Manage database, and it came back with analysis on bookings, billings, accounts receivable, accounts payable, all of which is drillable into more levels of detail. So we're going to do this in spades in the demo, but I just wanted to show you the interface when a report just runs by itself. We're going to focus on much more kind of in the dirt operational dynamics. So in the first example, I'm going to do a bill of material query. So I'm going to click on bill of materials, and the question that it asked me is, well, what is the assembly that you want to analyze? And maybe you don't even know the answer to that question. You just know that the word, the letters G3 appear in the description for that BOM. So I'm going to put G3 in there for now and hit go. And it just, again, ran a SQL very quickly against this Made2Manage database and said, well, here are all of the bill of materials that have G3 in their description. Now, even here, before we've gotten to the bill of material report, this is what we call the smart filter, because you get a lot of information. You don't just see a list of part numbers that qualified for the search criteria. You see their group code and product class and how much we have on hand, how much we have on order, when was the last time we issued or received it. In fact, if I don't put any search criteria in here and I just leave it blank and hit go, it'll run, it'll come back with 6,450 items. These are all of the assemblies in the database that I can search. So, and I just wanted to give you that note about filter results, but we're going to get back focused on this G3, and I say, there it is, the G3 scan module. That's the bill of material I want to analyze. So I'm going to ask for what I see here as what I call just the defaults. We can go through some of the other options here, but we're going to ask for a flattened bill of material for the G3 scan module. So I'll click on the part number, and it just ran another real-time query and comes back and says, well, let me tell you what the flattened bill of material looks like. You're doing a bill of material for this assembly. That assembly itself, you see it appear as a parent, has various parts that report to it, but there's other sub-assembly level parts, like the 88004 is a sub-assembly, and it has some parts reporting to it that finally reports up to the 8801. So we've flattened the bill of material. We see all of the component level part numbers, their rev, their description, product code, product class, group code, buyer, and then the classic quantity per cost, extended cost. Now, if you're an average cost company, that would be in the profile, and instead of standard cost, you would see average cost here. So now I want to show you some of the ways that we manipulate these views in Portus. So I'm doing a cost reduction analysis on capacitors. So I'm going to say I want all parts that start with cap. As soon as I do that filter, I get a filtered view of all the parts across all the various sub-assemblies that start with cap. And I come and say, well, I want to look at the highest hitters first, so I'm going to sort in descending order by extended cost. And now, if I wanted to, I could also put a filter in here and say, well, I'm only interested in them, I won't even do that. I'm only interested in them if they're over a certain cost amount. But we're going to focus on this first item. And we're going to say, I want to know much more about this one. It drives $3.15 worth of cost. It goes 12 per on the bill of material. Let me know more about this part. So when I click on this part, we go to what is by far the most used report in Portus. Our customers are getting to this report. We're getting to it through a bill of materials analysis, but we can get to it from an excess report, from a shortage report, all of these types of analysis where you end up getting a list of part numbers that you want to know more about. And it's everything you ever wanted to know about this one internal part number. Another note on navigation, if I click on these three little dots here, I can get the menu out of the way so the whole screen is ready to be available for the report. What's on here is really a combination of 10 different reports. In these three boxes here, we have relevant information from the item master. There are some statistics here looking at, what has been the usage, when was the last time we've actually had interactions with this part. If you have any notes in the item master, they would show up here. In this pod, we see how much is on hand by location. In this pod, we see which work orders require this part. In this pod, we see which work orders are building this part. This is a purchase part, so we don't build it, but we do buy it. So here are all of the open purchase orders for that part. Here are the approved manufacturer records. If you use that, you may have approved vendor records, in which case it would mine that for you. Where used, what assemblies is it used on? And a couple of other pods, which may not be relevant to everybody in the audience, but are interesting, says, well, my internal part number 0162333, as you see here, has these approved manufacturer records. This section says, hey, do I have these manufacturer part numbers under any other internal part number? Because I really may have the same part number in a couple of different bins. And this is something that's very exciting for our customers that have a lot of electronics in their bill of materials. When I click on market availability, Portus does a real-time query using a real-time service to see who has any of these approved manufacturer part numbers on hand. So if I go down here, it says, well, DigiKey has 130,000 of one of these on hand. And if I click on the manufacturer part number in any of these rows, it'll actually take me to the live DigiKey site. This is a vendor that sells electronics. Some of you may be familiar with them. And there's the number. There's the 13285 that's being reported here. And from here, I can do even further queries, look at data sheets and other things. This is important because what you see here is an example of one report that is incorporating information from your ERP system in all of these other places, but this area is certainly not in the Made2Manage database. This is coming from a completely different source. From here, I can do further queries like, okay, we're doing a cost analysis. This has a standard cost of 26 cents. I wonder how much I've been paying for it. Well, PO history will take me to a comprehensive PO history of all of the historical POs, and I can see, oh, I've been getting it for less than 26 cents when I've bought it at higher volumes. Or I could end up here and say, I only have 6,845. I looked at this yesterday. We had much more of these. What happened to our inventory? Inventory transactions is going to take me to a full 360-day running of how we got to 6,845 being on hand. So the last two things that have happened is we've received some against these POs that took our balance from 2,845 on February 6th to 6,845 now. So you can use this to do analysis on where inventory went and what have been the transactions. A lot of customers will tell me, Bill, this is excellent. There's a back button, and we didn't invent the back button. That just comes standard with the browser, but I kind of understand why they get excited, because you can just quickly get back to where we were, and it's illustrative because, you know, a few clicks ago, 20 seconds ago, we were looking at a full bill of material. We filtered, focused in on a part number, then we went to the DNA level on that part number, even going out of our four walls and seeing which suppliers have it available, and then we're back doing whatever we need to do next. The other key is none of this is something you need to program or cert or figure out how specific menus work. Everything is pre-packaged and ready to go, and we have a very big library of functionality that has stood the test over several Made2Manage customers over several years, being able to use it and get utility out of it. So that was one vignette, I call it, related to a bill of material analysis. I want to do one more that I've pre-planned related to job shortages, because it highlights probably one of the more powerful functionalities in Portus. And then I think we'll have time for just audience members to say, well, do you have something that does this, or what do you have in this area? But before I go on to the job shortage vignette, are there any high-level questions related to what I've shown you so far and anything specific to the bill of materials?
Bill, I think it looks good. I don't know if any of the people have questions about how they're doing it now. I mean, how this would enhance them. Think everything is good.
Okay. Yeah, so, and again, people can chime in at any point if you think of a question later. So not hearing anybody interrupting me, I'm going to go on to talk about job shortages. I said it's one of the more powerful elements that we have in Portus, because it's one thing to do reporting, meaning taking information from a database and then reporting a two-dimensional report. It's a completely different thing to take that information and then run recursive calculations very quickly. What's a recursive calculation? Like an MRP, a netting of supply-demand, so that you can give a real-time view of what is the shortage situation for any job. And that's one of the engines that's built into Portus. To demonstrate that, I'm going to run this report called Live MRP, which is one of the family of reports that uses this real-time MRP simulation algorithm that we have. And to keep it relatively contained, I'm going to ask for a live MRP report for our customer Nordstrom. I'm just going to hit go here and take the default values here. I'm going to look out 90 days and look at all jobs that are earmarked for our customer Nordstrom. So there is 13 jobs, and here they all are. What is this telling us? Well, at the beginning, it's just giving you a rundown of the jobs. What is the job number? What is the parent job? Is it linked to a sales order? Is it released or open? Who is the customer? What are we building? What rev? What's the description? And then what is the quantity on the job and what we still need to finish to complete the job? And then two all-important dates, the scheduled completion date and the scheduled release date of the job. You guys on the audience, I'm sure, are very familiar with these. The scheduled release date is going to be before the scheduled completion date, the difference being the amount of time necessary to complete that job. So the release date becomes very important because it's an indicator of when do we want all of the items on the job BOM available and ready to go to give our manufacturing organization enough time to build it. So let's focus on this last job over here. This is a job where we're building 13 of a particular assembly. We want to release the job on April 4th coming up, and then we're hoping to complete it then by the 12th. So we need all the material here on the 4th. Well, here's where the analysis from Portus comes in. It says, well, there's 51 items on the job BOM. All of them are short because it's an open job. We haven't even released it to kit the job. And then here comes the analysis. Out of those 51, 34 of them you're going to be able to get from stock, meaning having run an MRP algorithm and netting and applying common parts first to these other jobs that have priority because they have earlier scheduled release dates. Portus is coming back and saying, don't worry about 34 out of those 51 parts. You have plenty of inventory. Even by the time you get to April 4th, you're going to be able to cover all of those requirements from stock. Another good category is on order and on time. This is saying on 13 out of those 51 parts, I wasn't able to see you getting it all from stock, but I did find a purchase order, or if it's a make item, maybe a work order. And the further good news is that that work order that I was able to allocate has a delivery date that is on or before April 4th, hence the word on time. And then we have two bad categories. I found an order, but unfortunately, it's not going to get here by the time you want to release the job. And the worst possible category is, oh, sorry, this is not on order. I wasn't able to find anything in stock or on order that I could allocate to that requirement. So of course, we're going to want to know more about these 4 parts. Let's click on them. We click on those 4 parts. And we get 4 rows. Here now, for the first time, we're actually seeing the detail of what those parts are. For example, the first part, it says you need 26. The kit quantity is 26. You need 26 because you haven't issued any parts yet. There is 66 on hand right now, but I wasn't able to allocate any to this job, II-957. I wasn't able to find any on-time orders nor any not on-time orders. So that's why I've classified this item as a not on order item. So let's go see why, even though we have 66, Portus is saying I cannot allocate any to this job. Remember, our job is II-957. I'm going to click on the part number, and guess what screen I'm going to go to? I'm going to go to the part inquiry report for this guy. Now here in this pod, I see the 66 that I have on hand. And then here I see that across all of the jobs or even sales orders, if you have requirements at the sales order level, I have demand for 161 pieces. So these 66 are going to be gobbled up. So by the time we get to our job, which is down here, II-957, I'm not going to have any left. That's why Portus is saying, and I don't see any open purchase orders, so it's saying, I don't know what we're going to do here. In fact, the better way of seeing that is if we click on supply demand. This, I think, is the equivalent of the material availability report. It says, well, you have 66 on hand and you're not going to be able to get here when we get to II-957, you're already turning negative. Okay, By the way, we've just added a lead time line here to kind of show, based on the lead time of the part, when in this time frame is the lead time. So then if you go back to the part inquiry, you'll say, well, looks like I got to get this part. I wonder if there's any market availability. So using market availability, you can see, okay, good, there are some people that have it. Or I may want to look at PO history and say, well, where have I bought this in the past? Maybe I can go buy it from those guys. Or I look at the on hand and I say, 66, we should have more of those. Where did they go? So I come over here and I see, okay, yeah, we just got 25 in, but there was a cycle count done by Amy, looks like, that did an adjustment that took it down by 52. Maybe that's part of my problem. And then I want to tell you a little bit about, I'm going to go back here. I want to tell you a little bit about these bubbles. These bubbles are what we call Portus comments. So you can add a comment to a key item so that besides the numbers, you have some information. So for example, if I hover over this, over time, I have added multiple comments to this, the last one being on February 14th. If I click on the bubble, I see a full kind of history of all of the details. And if I add a comment and I say, PeopleSense webinar decided that we will be okay on this part. Okay, so we'll save that. Now that becomes our latest comment. And if I now go rerun my live MRP report, click on these 4 items, when I hover over the bubble, the last comment is PeopleSense webinar decided that we will be okay on this part. In fact, I can also show you a cool functionality. Whenever you see a grid, meaning a system of columns and rows, you'll see this Excel icon in the upper right-hand corner. So we're going to export this view to Excel and see what it looks like. Let me open it. I have some other things open. So here is that view. By the way, this is a real bona fide Excel spreadsheet. This is not some kind of a CSV file that you have to delimit. You open it, you can start playing with it. And the other cool thing is that because we have all of this real estate in an Excel spreadsheet, we've actually put the latest comment off to the side here. So this can be then used internally or sent to somebody to say, well, here's the latest status on what's going on with that job. Let me go back here. By the way, we could have, instead of just focusing on those 4 items, we could have run a comprehensive job shortage report, and it would put the items in order of the, if you will, what's in the worst shape. So our 4 items that are not on order show up first, then our on-time order, so we can make sure that, hey, are we going to get those on time? And then as you go through, you get all the stuff that we're going to get from stock. And then, of course, you can export this to Excel instead, so you get a comprehensive shortage report. Okay, so that is the vignette related to MRP and netting. So there's a bunch of other things I want to show you, and I can definitely improvise and go to various other topics. But if there is either a question on what I've shown or something like, hey, what do you have in regards to this? Let me know, and I can see what we have so that I can customize what I show next to something of relevant interest to the audience. Very quiet, okay. So either you're bored out of your mind or riveted.
Well, it might be that someone hasn't. Oh,
I see. I already see a question by Terry. A very good question.
Yeah. Okay. There. Yes.
Does it matter if you're a make-to-order or make-to-stop shop? Absolutely not. You correctly identified that this particular database is almost fully a make-to-stock database. But most of our customers are make-to-order, which actually makes things even easier because jobs are specifically earmarked for sales orders or Sometimes you have buy items where purchase orders are specifically earmarked for jobs. It works beautifully in that environment as well, and we have several customers that are referenceable about how it does that. Yeah, no issues with that.
If you're trying to say something and you might want to make sure that you're not muted. On the upper left-hand corner of the Go to Meeting box, there should be an icon with a microphone on it. And if you want to say something, we need to have that box be green so you're not muted.
And it's perfectly fine if you don't have anything specific in mind, because as I said, in the sales process, we can do a very big, we can do a personalized demo. Okay, new question. Which versions of M2M does it work with? Does it replicate some of the 7.5 drill down capabilities? Well, it'll work with any version of M2M that's SQL Server based. So if you have a very old version that's FoxPro based, we cannot. FoxPro is just not enough of a strong enough data engine to drive this kind of an application on. Does it replicate some of the 7.5 drill down capabilities? I'm not sure what the 7.5 drill down capabilities are. I haven't seen it because we just deal with the database. We don't really look at the application itself. So that's something we would need to delve a little bit more into. But it's drill down is a key part of everything that is in Portus. Part numbers drill down to part inquiry. Purchase order numbers drill down to a purchase order detail report. So there's a lot of drill down capabilities.
One of the things that one of the customers that saw our seminar back in our webinar, I should say, back in October, was Greg Verplank of Grover, and he talked to me actually while we were on this thing. He called me back just about a half an hour ago, and I had to mute everybody. But one of the things he said was that if there's something that they need to do that no one else has done before, Bill is willing to do it that way. And if you want to have it look a certain way, he can do it that way. It's very flexible. It depends. And when you say that you want to work with whatever replicating some of the drill downs and capabilities of 7.5, I imagine you could, but he could probably find a way to do that if that's what you wanted to do. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I would say, Brian, that what you see here, this has grown over time. We've been in the Made2Manage space for just over 4 years now, and I would say 50% of the Made2Manage functionality now has all been driven by customers asking for stuff. And I would say 90%, maybe higher than 90% of the time, that when we've built something for customer A, it's been useful to most, if not all, of the other customers. So that's how the functionality grows, is all through customers asking for things. And it's great for us because then we build stuff that is appealing to the next customer and the next customer, and the library grows and is more impressive, so it allows us to make more sales.
And Terry, if you wanted to show us what 7.5 drill down capabilities you're talking about, we can have your screen go to you. It just depends upon whether you're set up to do that or not. All I'd have to do is change the screen to you.
Bill or Brian, this is Tim Nickel.
Yes. Hi, Tim.
Question. You said that you can make changes to the drill down capabilities. Is this something like custom code?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, Tim, because you need to be very crystal clear on this. No customer actually changes the structure of Portus. Anything that's actually a structural change, we need to program and it either becomes an option or it becomes available to everybody. So this is not an ad hoc reporting tool where you're able to build your new Portus views. That is the philosophy, is that it's all pre-built. But for example, if you remember when we were doing the bill of material analysis, you know, I don't know whether you consider this customizing the view or not, but remember we were in here and I decided to filter it and say, well, I only want caps. So I say, okay, now I do filtering there, if you will. Sorry, I hit out too soon. Or I say I want to sort by the extended cost. So I'm actually manipulating the view. I can even say, for example, that, hey, in the columns, I don't want to see the item number. So if I take, or I don't want to see the MOQ or the lead time. So when I do that now, I'm also impacting the columns that are shown. But if you told me, well, I'd also, on top of this, for every item, want to see the weight of that item as it is in the item master. We'd have to add weight as a column for you. We do that at Portus. Something like that would take us all of about 10 minutes, and then we deploy a new version to you. By the way, changing from version to version of Portus takes less than a minute because the browser is your client. We never have to do anything at the individual computers. We just change files that are on the server that is hosting Portus to the new files, and anything that's new is now part of that functionality.
Okay, as part of the question of that, then, if you do a general update of Portus across for everybody, any of the custom code that you've done for, say, my company, would that also have to be now rewritten into that new update?
No, but you asked two fantastic questions. Very good. Like, for example, remember how I told you that if you're an average cost company in this bill of materials, this would not say standard cost, it would say average cost. Well, that's all done by a system called what we call forking. So we realize that while Made2Manage customers use it 90% the same, there is 10% where people are using it differently. So when those situations rise where we need it to do one thing for customer A and another thing for customer B, both versions are in the code, but when you log in, Portus understands that, oh, you're customer A. So when you get to this report, you're going to go down this fork. Therefore, it's going to look different to you. So when I do a general update, everybody still has their own experience because all of the different forks are in the code, and you go down one code, customer B goes down another fork, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Very good questions. While people are thinking of questions, and just to keep the momentum going, I want to show you some more graphical elements. Let me do one more as you guys are thinking about. Let's say that you want to analyze supplier on-time delivery. And the reason I try to squeeze in supplier on-time delivery is because it's an area that I've always been passionate about when I ran my own factory, where we had an ISO procedure that said we would have quarterly business reviews with our top 10 suppliers. That's 40 business reviews. And we were never able to get all of those done because it took so darn long to get all of the information necessary to do it. So there's a lot of functionality in Portus so that you can automate that. So in supplier on-time delivery, it says, well, how do you measure your suppliers? Do you measure them on each receipt, whether it's late or on time or early, or do you measure them based on the quantity received? Number of receipts is usually the more strict measure. And then you define what you consider on time. Well, you say, well, they can be as early as they want to be, but they cannot be late, or you can kind of play with these. So once you pick these and you hit go, Portus will go and it'll come back. Now this happens to be all of the suppliers. So now you have some things to play with. If you're familiar with Made2Manage, you can come in and you can say, you know what, from a PO category perspective, I'm only interested in INV, JO, and SO. So people in Made2Manage will know they want to skip potentially non-inventory related purchase items. And then I'm going to say, well, I'm going to give them the benefit of that. I'm going to measure them against their last promise date. So I'm going to go ahead and analyze that. Still not the best, but this is doctored data. But then maybe I say, well, I'm having a meeting with this particular vendor. So I'm going to pick them and analyze. And when we look at them, we look at things quarterly. Okay, so here is my quarterly performance from a supplier on-time delivery. We bring them in, very unhappy. In Q1 as an example, so far in Q1, we're not doing well, and we think this is your performance. And the vendor says, no, I don't think so. Well, then we drill. We say, okay, let me show you the detail of all 1,620 receipts that have come through so far in Q1. Okay, so if I look at this, it'll show me the receiver, the receive date, and then the promise date, the original and the latest, and then we are able to measure either on the original date or the latest whether we were on time or late. So if I say, well, look, I want to look at all things that are late, I can filter on that, and now I have all of my late deliveries, and then I can go on to the next supplier and next supplier. So this system of dashboards with drilled down into the detail so that you can do root cause analysis is also a key part of the Portus functionality. So, Brian, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 2 or 3 more slides that I've prepared for after the demo, and then I am open, depending on how much more the audience wants to stick around, especially if there's some very specific questions. But I do want to, after the demo, leave you with some thoughts. So what is Portus trying to deliver for you? Well, we're trying to get you automation on reporting and analytics, and only you know how much time and money you spend on that. Maybe it's a lot, maybe it's little, and it's a combination of software and people and maybe just inefficiency running around. Also, efficiency on repetitive informational tasks. For example, a part number maybe inside your company 1,000 times a day, different people in different functions are trying to look up information about a part number. Well, if you use part inquiry in Portus and you get to all of that information in 3 seconds versus it takes 2 minutes, not a long time, but 2 minutes to do it the way you do it today, but when you multiply that by 1,000, that's a pretty big impact. The other thing, this is this idea of a single version of the truth. So when you go into Portus, it's always real time what's happening in Made2Manage. So you don't sit around the table saying, well, my Excel report says this, oh, I don't see that, so on and so forth. Then using the reports, because all the analytics is done, now you can really build nice scalable workflows. Like once a month, we're going to get into a room and talk about accounts receivable. Once a day, we're going to look at job shortages. Once every 2 weeks, we're going to do cost reduction analysis on our biggest assemblies. And people aren't afraid of doing that because they don't say, well, how are we going to do that every 2 weeks and put the information together? And all of that should lead to better customer satisfaction. With Portus, you can do some powerful stuff that's not necessarily something that just report writing software can do. Because it's a platform that can accept data from multiple places, then it integrates, you can get information from all over the place. And then, you know, ERP license costs are quite expensive. And if Portus is doing a good job delivering the information for the analytical people where they don't have to make transactions necessarily in Made2Manage or Intuitive, but they just need to look at data, then they don't need to tie up a license to do that. They'll just use Portus to get there, and Portus does not tie up a Made2Manage license. One last thing for you to think about is our whole philosophy is that you're somehow already paying for all of this some way or the other, because in a business you have to convert that data into meaningful information. So you've spent the money on the ERP, maybe you've spent some money on reporting software and reporting resources. That's what we call cost of tooling. Maybe you're also, different people across the organization are just maintaining and designing reports, a lot of Excel, and going in and looking at things repetitively that take a long time. And if all of this is not working for you, you may be paying for it through cost of failure. You know, it's just inadequate. We're losing time. We're not as productive as we want to be. So all of this is part of the dynamics of converting your data in your ERP system to something meaningful. One way or the other, there is some investment there. And what we hope to do with Portus is to give you an appliance that does all of this stuff, thereby eliminating or greatly reducing the cost of failure, meaning the cost of not doing the transformation of your data effectively. So I can stop there, and we still have a good 10 minutes, so I can go back if somebody has some things they want to look at in Portus, or ask any other questions. Oh, Terry asked, how are customizations built? Well, we don't bill for customizations unless you are going into like a very proprietary database that's not made to manage. Once you're subscribing customers,
or intuitive.
Yeah. So if it's something that is already in the database for Made2Manage or intuitive, we will build it for you. And it's not because we're just goody two shoes. What happens is that just improves our application. And if like, for example, in that example I gave in the bill of materials report, if you said, well, I'd like to see a column called the weight or the safety stock. Well, if you've spent any time in the system, you know, if we're already grabbing the standard cost or the lead time, we're already getting all of that information from the item master. Adding a couple of more things is going to be too quick for us to spend the time and bid on and talk about the price and stuff. So, and we do it very fast. These are the types of questions where you want to talk to some of our existing customers to confirm. Is there an annual support fee? So let me tell you how this works. So we do a webinar, then you, at your discretion, we can do an individualized demo. Then you get a 30-day trial. So we install this on your premises so you can see the stuff with your data. Then after the trial, after those 30 days, you have two options. You can continue the trial for another 90 days at $500 a month, because at that point we want you to have some skin in the game. Or you can sign up for a 33% discount off of the normal pricing for the first year, which I'm about to tell you what that is. The way that it works is it's a monthly subscription, meaning you can have one user open 17 browser sessions, or you can have 90 users doing 17 browser sessions. It doesn't matter, it's unlimited. And we don't ask for any commitments beyond the 1 month. So if after 4 months we're not performing, then you can cancel, although that's never happened to us. So pricing. It ranges from $1,000 to $3,000 per month, depending on the package of functionality, which we can go into more detail when we do an individualized demo. We do have some specialized things that I showed you, like that Portus comments and the electronic distributor feeds, which just may not be something that you're interested in or relevant to your business. So those are not forced on people as part of the packages, but you can add them. And we expect the system to have pretty much immediate ROI on this basis. And then that's it. It's a subscription. So there isn't an upfront cost and then annual support. It's all month-to-month subscription. I think that answers your question, Terry. And then, yeah, we have this slide.
Yeah. So if you do want to do a one-on-one, you can contact me, or you can contact Gary if you're an Intuitive customer, and we can set up a one-on-one demo with you. And then if you want to go to the next stage, which would be to do a trial, then that would be between you and Bill. So anybody have any other questions or have a comment or so on what was said? Okay, I guess we're not hearing anybody. If you're muted, by the way, just I know I make that mistake all the time. I sit here and talk and I'm muted. But if there's anybody that has anything to say, just to make sure you're unmuted and talk to us. Okay, Bill, you had something else you wanted to say?
No, that's it. I look forward to interacting with some of you. Hopefully you found it useful.
Okay. Well, thank you much, and you have my contact information, and you have, if you don't have Bill's, I can get that to you. Thank you.